How to get better sleep. Sleep is one of, if not the most underrated tool you can use to help better your health and function. So before we get into how to get better sleep, we first have to understand why sleep is so important. Sleep is basically your body's ultimate way of recovering. Whether you're stressed out, you work 2 jobs, or are a frequent gym goer, or maybe some combination of those, sleep is like the reset button for your body's energy and function. Now, a lack of sleep can be pretty detrimental to your health. For example, it could reduce your quality of life or impair your cognitive function. So for example, you might have reduced reaction times and alertness, and it could impair your concentration, so you won't be able to focus as well. Your mood states could be altered as well quite easily, so you could have increased tension or anxiety and a decreased amount of emotional control, which I don't know about you guys, but that could play a major role in the future of your life and relationships. You could also have less situational awareness and an impaired judgment, which, depending on what you do for work or whatever situation you're in, could play a major role in your future. Now, with all this in mind, some people might not accurately rate their level of fatigue, so because of this, they might not prioritize sleep as much as they should, which could again lead to all these other issues. Now, on the flip side of that, more sleep essentially means the reverse of everything I just listed out, as well as hormone regulation. It helps your metabolism, it improves your immune system, and even helps with your thinking and memory. And that really is just scraping the surface. There is a lot more that goes into it, but there are many reasons on why sleep is so important. Comment below, what is the best thing you have done personally that helps you get better sleep at night? So how exactly do you get better sleep? Well, I think one of the most important factors to consider is, what are your shifts looking like? What is your daily routine looking like? Are you expending a lot of energy? Do you have a pretty laid back job and lifestyle? Do you work in shifts, or is your work kind of more sporadic? It really just depends. I know, for example, tactical populations like law enforcement, military, and firefighters, they don't always get to go home every single night, and there are sometimes long periods of time where they are not home. And this is important to keep in mind, because sleeping 8 hours at an office or on base is not necessarily the same as sleeping 8 hours at home. This is because you're still technically at work, and that stress is still there in the back of your mind. Some other aspects to consider in your life are, do you exercise during the day or at night? Are you working 2 jobs? Do you have to go home to kids after? A lot of this kind of depends on your foundational schedule on which you have to work around during the day. But I think no matter what your scenario is, having a nightly routine helps tremendously. And this nightly routine basically consists of what helps wind your body down, leading in, letting it know, hey, we're about to go to sleep. So for example, this could look like getting a shower, brushing your teeth, and maybe even reading a book. One of the biggest factors I've seen in getting better sleep is your sleeping environment. For example, light plays a major factor in how you sleep and how you get ready for bed. So this could be anything like, what sources of light are in your room shining that even with your eyes closed, the light is still within view of them. So this could be anything like a clock, a TV, closing your door because light's coming in from the hallway, maybe even curtains on your windows. And one that probably most of us are culprits of, blue light on our phones. So really, most of us are supposed to turn our phones off about an hour or 2 before going to bed. This is more optimal overall. However, I know this is not realistic, especially if you have to communicate or work from your phone a lot as well. So one thing that I started doing was getting blue light glasses and actually putting these on, because I know your phone has the nighttime filter where you can make it so it's not as bright and not emitting as much light into your eyes. However, I've noticed that putting on the blue light glasses add another barrier to that blue light, and it actually has helped me a lot more than I realized. I ended up falling asleep way faster when I put them on, about 1 to 2 hours before bed, than I do when I don't put them on. I don't even bother. If you feel like you've learned something new, or if you're finding this video pretty interesting, be sure to drop a like down below. Another part of your sleeping environment is temperature. It is very hard to sleep, for me personally, when it is hot in the room, or even when it's warm in the room. I really do not like it. I feel like I get sweaty, I get uncomfortable, and I can't fall asleep as easily. So you could try lowering the temperature in your house depending on the time of year. I know right now at the time of this recording, we're just getting out of winter in the US, so it is already cooler here than it normally is. But having a cool setting where you were on the chillier side and then can wrap up in blankets will help you fall asleep much better than if you have all your clothes off and you're sweating in bed without a blanket on trying to fall asleep. One thing that I actually got gifted recently too was a weighted blanket. This is pretty cool because the weighted blanket kind of allows you to feel like there's more blankets on you, something more wrapped around you. It kind of encapsulates all that heat from your body in bed into that little area, so it does keep you warm at night if it is cold. So I found that to help a lot as well. However, one thing to keep in mind is that during the summer, because it traps so much heat in and because of where I live, it gets very hot during the summer. I probably won't be using it then, but it is great for the fall and winter times or whenever it gets really cold at night. Another thing you can consider is the amount of sound being produced around you when you're sleeping. If you live next to a highway where there are cars constantly driving by, or if you just have kids downstairs playing, or maybe you live with some roommates and they're throwing parties often, but you have to go to bed pretty early. And these can all disrupt your sleep as well. So maybe investing in some sort of earmuffs or earplugs in a night mask could go a long way in helping you get that better sleep. And it's a small investment for a really big payoff in the end. So I'll now give you guys an example of some of my sleeping environment things that I've really paid attention to recently and have helped me out a lot. So right here, we've got the weighted blanket. It's a little smaller than most blankets, but it really does do a good job of keeping you warm at night. Sometimes it gets me a little too warm on those, medium-ish level nights, and I end up having to take it off a bit, but it is great for keeping you warm. Definitely recommend in the fall and winter, and especially when it's really cold out. So we actually have a window right behind here as well where the sun just beats in on it. And so my brother and I decided that is way too freaking bright, so we are going to cover that thing up with a huge blanket, and it works. It has been very effective as well, especially in the mornings when we want to and get to sleep in. I should mention that this is a little bit smaller than a normal size blanket. Just for reference, this is a twin size bed. So it's not huge and I'm not a big person, but it still gets the job done for me. Another thing here as well, there are little different sources of light, even when the room is completely dark. I've been closing the door recently as well. This feels a lot better because someone from our family is always up in the morning or always having to do something, and sometimes it makes noise, so it cancels the noise out. Sometimes the light just comes in the room and is a little disruptive. So by having that door closed, it makes it even darker, more quiet, more peaceful. Another source of light, believe it or not, is this little light right here from the TV. Although it doesn't seem very big, it makes a big difference when the lights are off. I'll show you guys real quick. So as you can see, that kind of makes a big difference when you're trying to sleep and that thing is just bright in your face. Another thing too is this clock that we have going on right here. It doesn't seem very bright, but maybe if you can see that little blue light where the colon's supposed to be. We ended up actually covering that up with black tape just because that was super bright, especially in the middle of the night. Here's a reference of basically what I'm seeing from my bed. So as you can tell, even that is a little bright, especially when it's dead on like that. So recently what I've been doing so I can still see the clock is I just angle it a bit to where I'm still able to see the numbers without it being too flashy and just straight on like this. So I just angle it a bit. I even might put like a sleeve over it so I could just see the hour, and that's been working recently as well. Now, I'm pretty sure there's also these like little, like you don't need a full-on like tape for it to block something off. There's something that like dims it. There's some sort of tape that just makes the lettering and the brightness tone down a bit, so you don't necessarily have to block off the entire thing. And apparently those help out as well too. I've just seen this has worked so far and haven't really gotten around to grabbing one of those little stickers that block it off a bit, but that's what works. So as you can see, all the lights are covered up besides this. So yeah, this is basically the only source of light in the room that I kind of let slide. I don't really do anything about it. Also, if it starts like dying or blinking red or something, I just want to make sure that it's, you know, it's this one that's messed up and it's not any of the other ones. So yeah, that's basically everything. Minimal light, minimal sound exposure, cool room temperature is nice and cool. The weighted blanket helps keep you warm, helps keep you wrapped up. You like that feeling of being bundled up. So it does a really good job of that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my personal sleeping environment. So getting on to other factors, your resting heart rate may play a role as well. How much can you de-stress before bed? This kind of plays again into that nightly routine where you wind down, you let your body know, hey, we're not at work anymore, we're not busy anymore, it's time to start relaxing. Stimulants are also a major role in this as well, because a lot of people are coffee drinkers or energy drink drinkers and things to keep them up and going during the day because they might not be getting enough sleep at night to begin with. So if you can, try your best to avoid stimulants like coffee and energy drinks probably 8 or so hours before bed. I know personally, when I drink an energy drink, I usually only drink half of it, and I am up for probably the next 10 or so hours, simply because I do not have a very high tolerance to caffeine at all because I barely drink it. If I have coffee, it's rare and it's about a half a cup of coffee anyways. For those of you that drink 2 and 3 cups of coffee a day or have 1 or 2 energy drinks a day, try to get those in the morning and maybe even around lunchtime as opposed to after lunch and during dinner time and so on. Now, your circadian rhythm is actually huge in this as well. Your body likes when you go to bed and wake up at the same time every single day. So whether you have shift work or non-shift work, if you can get in the habit of falling asleep at, say, 10:30 every single night and waking up at 7 in the morning, whatever, and you can get in that daily routine, your body will thank you so much more for that, as opposed to where someone like myself at the end of high school or in college would be going to bed at 12 in the morning one day, waking up 10 in the morning on the next day, or going to bed at 9 the night before and waking up at 4:30 in the morning the day after. Really just getting your body in a rhythm where it's constant helps you wind down better and helps you wake up easier and more refreshed and energized. Your nutrition could also play a role in this as well, because when you have lots of sugar before bed or even earlier in the day, you could get a huge spike in energy and then just completely crash later in the day. As cliche as it sounds, having a well-balanced diet and having a rainbow of fruits, vegetables, meats, grains, everything that you can on your plate really does go a long way. So as simple as it sounds, eating healthier will help you get better sleep and allow your body to function and go through what it needs to go through more properly. Another big factor I notice, especially with a lot of high school and college students, is napping. Now, I used to be a huge napper, especially in high school, and as I'm going through college, it's become less frequent, but it still happens. So if you take a 2 to 3 hour nap at 3 or 4 p.m., you've refreshed yourself, you feel better for the time being, but you will probably end up going to bed much later than what you normally do, just because you're so much more refreshed and awake. I've heard good things on power napping, anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes of just laying down, even if you don't fully fall asleep, and then you get right back up after those 10 to 30 minutes can give you a huge spike in energy, although you didn't get into deep sleep hard enough or long enough. But it will give you just enough energy for at least a few extra hours of that day. But overall, any sort of napping that, especially long term, could be a detrimental factor in your circadian rhythm in general and really disrupts your usual body schedule. Another thing to keep in mind too is what time of day you're exercising at. So for example, if I'm exercising during the day or in the morning, I will most likely become much more tired by the end of the day, as opposed to if I'm exercising at night super late where my body is going, it's up and running, and although I might be immediately tired after the workout, your brain is still you haven't wound it down, your brain is still going. I've noticed sometimes too, if I work out at night and I have a great workout, I get a huge spike in energy, although I'm kind of dead from, my muscles are dead from that workout, and you obviously don't want a huge spike in energy before you're getting ready to go to bed. So if this is something you can control, then it might be better to work out earlier in the day or even afternoon as opposed to late at night before you're trying to wind down. And that being said, if you do have to work out late at night, hopefully you can just sleep in later that day. So you might not have a set schedule from sleeping at 10 o'clock, waking up at 6:30 or whatever, but it might be shifted more so you're going to bed at 1 o'clock, but you're waking up at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock later that day. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And here is the video YouTube thinks that you'll like next. So be sure to check it out right here.